So here's the thing. What if I told you I could save all of your money on tax, as in pay zero tax?
Keep going.
You could use this money saved on tax to buy property. And you could hold this property, own it, but not legally own it, so no one knows that you control it. So that your ex-wife or the government or someone who's opposing you in the political space doesn't know that you own these assets. You don't need to declare them in any forms. You also don't need to pay property taxes on these because they're technically not your assets. What if I told you all this was possible if you followed one foolproof plan? Well, that's exactly what's been marketed to celebrities, politicians, rock stars, sports people, rich people all over the world by a set group of advisors. This has all come to light in a debacle known as the Pandora Papers. What we're going to talk about today is how this affects you as an Australian, even though you're not among the mega rich. So before we begin any of this, we need to talk about what a tax haven is. A tax haven, strictly speaking, is a country or jurisdiction where there is little or no tax. An example would be Samoa. Samoa is a beautiful Pacific nation, they speak English there, but best of all, if you're a foreign corporation that sets up shop in Samoa, you pay zero income tax. On top of that, you're not required to report to the government on your income, and they don't have a double taxation agreement with Australia, meaning they don't need to share information on your company if the ATO goes knocking on their door. Naturally speaking, this is great for a company if you want to hide profit overseas. So let's talk about how the rich use tax havens to save money and buy property. Like I said before, it means that you can move money from Australia to Samoa to save money on tax. So how do you do this? The first thing you want to do is set up a business in Australia, a very profitable business that generates income that you'd like to hide. We're not talking about a couple of thousand here, we're talking in excess of $1 million, often $10 million. What you then want to do is move this income overseas. This is done in a number of ways. There's a number of scams available to people looking to shift profit overseas. The two methods I've seen are transfer pricing and interest payments. Transfer pricing is where if you buy a product from overseas, you actually pay more than it's actually worth. So you create a loss on this end of the border, but the other side gets more income. The second way is to charge interest. So $10,000 overseas, they lend it to you, and you pay something like $50,000 in interest. Effectively moves the money from Australia to overseas. The second benefit of having these assets in a tax haven is that you can use it to hide these assets. So say you own a building. The government can't see it, the government can't touch it, because they don't know that you own it. It's owned technically by the company overseas. This isn't just pie in the sky thinking. Research has come out of these Pandora Papers that literally hundreds of millions of dollars of Australian property is owned by overseas corporations known as foreign investment vehicles. Now that's enough of the theory of it. How do you actually do this? Dotted all over the country and all over the globe are investment advisors. These guys specialize in providing advice on how to move your money overseas and how to keep it secret. The guys in Australia have counterparts in Singapore, the Isle of Man, Liechtenstein, Vanuatu, Samoa, anywhere that has a favorable tax treatment for rich people. Using this network, they will shift money overseas and maintain this structure for you for as long as you need them to. There are three qualities that you need in such an advisor. The first is an in-depth knowledge of structuring and tax structure. The second is that they need to be morally ambiguous. And the third is that they can maintain a secure and secret network of advisors and records to make sure your stuff is kept safe and away from government's eyes. So, how effective is this? Well, I've personally had to investigate overseas banking transactions with people who've taken money from Australia and tried to hide them in the Cayman Islands. I've personally spent over 4 years looking over certain investigations, and I can tell you this. In viewing only a single bank account that was in German, it took me well over a month to get all the transactions out. And even once I understood the German transactions, I didn't understand their tax system. So taking into account that there's a multitude of countries all over the world, multitudes of banks, and people are actively trying to make it difficult for you to get this information, it's incredibly difficult for someone who doesn't have a knowledge of the whole broad spectrum of it to decipher what's happening in the market and what people are actually trying to hide from you. So now you should probably be asking, surely the ATO has a special task force that specializes in reading German bank statements and finding out if people are holding things overseas. Well, they do. In 2006, Project Wickenby was launched. Project Wickenby was started specifically to crack down on this behavior. It targeted celebrities and high net worth individuals and tried to make sure that they couldn't keep assets overseas and move their money out of Australia. How did it work out? Well, it started in 2006 and ended in 2015. Over the course of 9 years, they had 4,520 audits. As a result of these audits, over $2 billion in tax liabilities were raised. However, if you drill further down into the data, only $985 million in cash was recovered. So this outlines two things. One, it took 9 years to get all this data out. Two, even though they did uncover all this criminal behavior, and they did outline that money was owed to the government, they weren't even able to get back half of it. So this goes to show this is an incredibly effective method of hiding money from the government and buying assets. So this brings us all back to the Pandora Papers. Remember when I said you need 3 things for this whole method to work? First of all, the advisor needs to be very good at their job. Secondly, they need to be morally ambiguous. And thirdly, this all needs to be kept a secret. Well, it's the third one that really messed up. See, someone at one of these firms around the world went to the journalists and produced 12 million documents on their clients, throwing them under the bus and showing the world exactly what's been hidden. They've already outlined 300 politicians, celebrities, rock stars, really high net worth individuals who didn't want us to know that they had money. All these people have effectively been thrown under the bus, but they thought they were secure. So this leads to the final part of the video. Would I recommend such a strategy to my clients? I mean, I've proven that it's really effective. You can buy property, and it's really hard for the governments to find out about this. The answer is no. The methods that I've just talked about rely on you lying and hiding assets. A real tax planning structure doesn't have to do that. Yes, you might have a self-managed super fund or a family trust, but it doesn't mean that you're hiding things from the government. It just means you're working within the law to minimize your tax liability. The second reason I wouldn't advocate for these methods is that people who generate income that they want to hide don't usually generate it in an honest way. Any accountant or lawyer worth his salt has been approached by a shady character at some point, asking them to help them hide some money, bury a body, I don't know what it is. The fact is, if you get in bed with people like this, you are more likely to get reviewed by the government, you're more likely to get stabbed in the back by one of your clients, literally and figuratively. So that pretty much summarizes the Pandora Papers. If you liked this video, please give it a like and subscribe. I'd really appreciate it. It would really help me with the algorithm on whatever platform this is on, and hopefully I can create more videos of interest to people like you.